are checking out one of the properties in Hamilton. This one made the newspaper for a house that was essentially not livable. It used to be a low-income housing property, and it was completely horrible. Now it is going through a bit of a process. The WISE team has worked on it. We've got the permits, so let's go check it out.
Nice.
Yeah, it is. So there were quite a bit of stipulations and issues acquiring this and closing on this property. Lee, why don't you give us a little bit of insight on, how you purchased this house and how it all unfolded?
Sure. So this house was bought. This house actually was listed on MLS. We purchased this house sight unseen. So this was done through JV partnership. They didn't see this house either, so we put an offer in. I think they had this house listed for $299. We put an offer in for $610, and we got this house.
So for working on a sight unseen offers, I always recommend to come with me if you can. But with COVID and all the times it's happened in the past, we've had to adjust and change with the time. So you offer FaceTime, you try to show as much, but the craziness of putting offers sight unseen, if you asked me years ago, I would have not been comfortable with it because the OCD in me wants to see every single piece, every single floor, every single wall. But, with real estate moving as fast as it does, by holding out and waiting for a schedule that works for you, you might miss out on a deal. And that could mean a lot of money out of your pocket. So sight unseen does happen. It is a bit crazy, but I think if it works with the right tools, and if you're asking the right questions and you've got the right team behind you, you'll be confident with the end product.
But there was a lot of publicity on this house surrounding I guess some of the tenants, this was one of the Hamilton houses.
Ultimately, it was a good purchase. It was a good buy. A lot of stigma sometimes comes around and pushes a lot of people away. But I think when it's all said and done, it'll be a great property. The numbers are there, and so I love those.
But there was a lot of publicity on this house that it made it when we came time to close it and get insurance. The underwriters were Googling the address, much like they usually do, and some of the stuff that was popping up made it hard to get insurance. So this is definitely one of the most expensive houses that I've ever had to insure on a builder's risk policy. It's probably about double, if not 3 times the amount.
I think, it's a selling feature. I think it's pretty cool. Like if you finish it the right way, and there's an entire market of individuals that are going to want to have that status to say, I stayed in a haunted house, and they're going to post it all over social media. So I think it's interesting. And the fact that you can look past that stigmatism differentiates you from everyone else that'll look at a property.
Can we ask how much the insurance actually is?
12 grand a year.
Yeah, that's a lot to get this built versus how much is it usually?
Usually about 5 to 6.
Okay, so definitely double.
Double.
So from a legal standpoint, Ryan, when there's something like this and the insurance is having a hard time trying to decide if they're going to insure it or not, what are some of the things that are happening behind the scenes with you and the insurance companies?
Well, as lawyers, we're involved in kind of the final registration and closing. We sort of quarterback everything coming together. So with you guys as the clients, the insurance representative that you're working with or trying to work with, if there's financing, the mortgage rep and so forth. So we kind of quarterback it all into registration and closing. So once we know who you're using for insurance, we'd be able to, call them, figure out, okay, what do you need from us to issue us the proper policies and binders is what they call it, so that we know we've got protection for the lender and the financing on the deal. From our standpoint, that's really the main requirement that we need the insurance for, the lenders won't obviously advance and allow authorization of funding until they see insurance and that their risk is covered, right? I mean, in your case, you guys bought this and offered on this in the really hot market that existed. I think the market's changed a bit. I think one of the things people can work on trying to do is you can have conditions or something in to help allow you time to find insurance if you knew ahead of time it was going to be a problematic deal. But otherwise, behind the scenes, we're working with your insurance rep, we're working with you guys, and we're working with your finance rep to make sure that the coverage is there.
Now that the market is shifting, and as a realtor, what we're seeing is we're seeing less buyers, okay? But we have more options to put conditions in offers. So financing, we're able to put a financing condition. We are able to put inspection clauses, due diligence clauses in these offers at, 6 months ago, 8 months ago, we weren't able to do that. So we have a little bit more leverage as buyers, or specifically buyers have more leverage in the sense of getting more for what the property is. And it protects buyers too, because now we have more outs if things do come up that could cause you to walk away from a deal.
Yeah, the market's definitely changed. When we offered on this one, they were very clear that nobody was going to come in until they had an accepted offer. And at that point, it was like any accepted offer back then was like if there was even so much as a condition in there, you were probably going to get outbid by somebody else. But truth be told, this isn't the worst house that I've bought.
The worst house that I've ever walked into in my life would be one that I went with Sarah and Lee recently. This was an interesting property, had a lot of potential. It was a severance opportunity. From the outside, looked like it needed some cosmetic work. And then when we walked in, we were hit with a swarm of flies. And it was absolutely disgusting. And we walked up the stairs and we got up to the kitchen, and they had one of those fly traps that hang from the ceiling. And I'm pretty sure that Sarah brushed her shoulder up against it. And I'm looking around, and it looked like there was like cockroach eggs everywhere. It was pretty rough, but that was probably the worst one that I've seen. Yeah, we didn't buy it, but I was trying to convince them to buy it though.
That's actually when I walked in, we were like, wow, this is like, it was rough, but it wasn't the worst one that I've done. Probably not even the top 10.
But it made the media, it made the news as something that should be unlivable completely. I mean, if you guys look at the Google, you just Google this address. We won't say what the address is, but I'm sure there's not that many that have been basically blacklisted, and it was all over the news. From a conversion standpoint, what are you doing here?
Yeah, so this is our typical 2.5-story Century Home conversion into 2 legal units. So we have our basement basement and main floor is the unit 1, and then the second and the attic is unit number 2. And what's nice is, because this is a gut and a redo, from a fire separation perspective, from just an overall construction perspective, it's almost like new construction. We can come in, we can do everything new, all new plumbing, stud framing, all new electrical. So it makes it easy from a overall renovation perspective.
Awesome. So these are students of mine, Cam and Kelly. They are awesome. They're in Ottawa, and they have purchased a lot. Actually, they're in Kingston. They have purchased a lot already in Kingston and wanted to expand to the Hamilton area. And I think this is a great one. And I think when it's going to be done, it's going to be completely different, and it'll have a new stigma. It'll be the haunted house that became a nice, modern, livable house that is going to probably command some pretty good rents.
What's different about this one is that we actually had to lower the basement floor. The basement ceiling height was too low, so we had to dig it out. We had to construct a bench footing around the perimeter. We had to do new interior waterproofing and a new concrete floor slab. So it was quite a bit of work had to go into the basement just so that we can meet our minimum heights down there. Maybe we can take a look at that after. But it's valuable square footage, and in today's market, the more square footage that we have to work with, the better it is. So it's definitely worth it to spend that extra money, to do those dig outs in the basement and to lower that floor and to gain that space. So yeah.
I would definitely say don't stinge on the finishes. I noticed that when we started working with Wise, the quality of their finishes on their renovations, even for rentals, were phenomenal. And that allows us to give premium rent prices, whether it's long-term, whether it's midterm, whether it's short-term. If you do the right renovations the first time around or use the right company, you will obviously get better tenants. Even before the building closes or you decide to purchase, decide what strategy you're going to move forward with, what type of conversion you're going to move forward with, and get those bylaws sorted out the first time.
Awesome. So we're expecting, what, 12 months until completion, give or take, with
So-
permits and everything?
Yeah, permits have been issued maybe 2 months ago.
Yeah, we've had them for a while now.
Two months, I would say. So from 2 months until where we are now, we're just finishing up the mechanicals. So mechanicals are probably be done the end of this month. Plumbing's done, electrical's done, on to HVAC. There's 2 HVAC systems going in here. All the framing's done, fire separation's done. We're up to date with our inspections with the city. The basement's been lowered and benched, re-poured with a new floor. There's a new building code in effect for new poured basements, which is it's called Radion. So there's 2 ways to do it. You can put a Radion detector. There's also actually a workaround. I don't know if you know the workaround around the Radion.
Yeah, it's a radon mitigation system, which we have to. So anytime you're exposing the soil in the basement, that has potential to release this radon gas into the unit, and so you have to put like a radon mitigation system. And there's a couple of different ways of doing it. Here in Hamilton, they allow us to do like a plastic sheet that we can put across the soil. We seal it up against the walls and we pour concrete on top of that, and that gives a good air barrier to prevent the gases from coming up. There's also different pipe systems that you can install a pipe and it can go underneath the floor slab with a fan that creates a negative pressure underneath your floor slab and kind of sucks out the air from underneath the slab. So any sort of radon gas that could be in that air would be able to be sucked out and vented outside. But yeah, it's a new requirement. Well, it's been in the building code for a while. Not every single municipality has really been enforcing it, but we're starting to see, as these types of basement units become more and more popular, we're definitely seeing the cities kind of enforcing this radon system.
We chose to use the poly. That's what the inspectors and I kind of agreed on. It was just an easier approach. Speaking of code, you know what they brought back for duplexes?
What?
Backflow preventers.
Because I know for a long time, it never made sense to me why here in the city that they would make us remove a backflow preventer if you're going to do a conversion.
Made no sense.
It made no sense.
No sense, but they brought it back now. So
now
we're
allowing them
back
to stay?
but they actually want it in
Now
the
they want them in.
basements.
Yeah.
So they can't make up their mind.
Yeah.
So once this is all done, what is the refinancing process from a legal standpoint? What do you do at that point? And what's different from a regular purchase?
Well, it's not too different in the sense that it'll start with us getting notified from the client and their mortgage representative that a new mortgage has been set up. We'll get the mortgage instructions from the lender directly, and then we just basically do a new sub-search of the property. If we've been involved with the purchase, we just update it from the last time we did our search, make sure there's no additional registrations, and then we meet with the clients and sign the documents with them. So it's pretty straightforward on the refinance end. The more challenging part is obviously the purchase. There's a little bit more due diligence and searches that go into that. Refinancing and doing a buyout after is pretty straightforward.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
I was going to ask, are you seeing anything different now with the change in the market?
As far as like refinances?
Yeah, with times and restrictions with the lenders?
Not really for us. Like once we get the instructions, I would say the process for us is relatively the same. Maybe depending on the deal and the borrowers, the lenders might have an extra condition or two that maybe they wouldn't have had like 12 or 18 months ago. Right. But overall, it's about the property and the borrowers.
Hi, Dalia.
Hi, Aisha.
What are some of the current challenges that you are seeing investors face in the financing world, and what are some solutions you're suggesting to them?
We're seeing a few things. Because of the rising rates, we're seeing some investors who are on a variable or an adjustable rate mortgage experience higher payments that are eating into their cash flow. We're seeing tougher mortgage qualifications as a result, And there are solutions. And for those who are experiencing cash flow pressure, I'm going to give you a few quick tips here. There are options to extend amortization. There are options to go with an interest-only payment on a loan temporarily to help reduce the pressure. And for qualification, there are options to help swap debt. So if you have something expensive, we can replace it with something cheaper to open up room to borrow money. So my point is, these are normal challenges given the interest rates, but there are solutions, and these solutions will be tailored to every individual investor given their financial circumstances.
Great. Thank you. And don't forget to visit streetwisemortgages.com for more information on how you can get help.
All right, so we're on the second floor of this house. How much was the purchase price?
$610,000.
And what are you estimating in renovations?
In today's market?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, okay, today's market, we're gonna be about $350,000.
$350,000, and after repair value?
So when we bought this house in February, we were hoping at the rate everything was going, we were thinking 1.2, 1.3. Things have changed, obviously. I think with the square footage and everything, the units, the renovations, we're probably going to be somewhere in the high 9s to low 1s. So
Okay.
still a pretty good deal, I think.
So for market rents, as the realtor, what are you thinking we're gonna get for a 2-story main floor and basement, and a 2-story second level and top as units themselves?
Yeah, we're pushing over 22 to 23 at this point, and it depends on the finishes. Renters are demanding more, and the kind of quality you guys put out there will command more. So you're looking at closer to the 5 mark on it, because you're on a main strip here.
Okay, awesome.
And you'll walk to the hospital.
Also, so you can get the nurses and the healthcare workers, potentially midterm rentals. This could be actually a good midterm rental opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we've decided to use the midterm strategy on a lot of the properties that you're going to see on the show. Right now, the market is shifting. What a long-term rental can bring you in is shifting, and your rights as a landlord have obviously never really been in a good place when you're a long-term tenant landlord. And with inflation and the interest rates rising, investors need an opportunity to change the way they're investing to ensure that money's not coming out of their pocket and they're not losing opportunities. So we've taken the midterm rental strategy because it allows you to A, not be conformed to your rental pricing, B, you have the ability to change the rate you charge your guests, and you're not locked into long-term tenants, which is the biggest factor. If people don't sit well with you, they can leave, and midterm strategy is anything more than 30 days. Short-term is less than 28. So you could use the strategy short-term as well, which we likely will, but also there's a lot of restrictions in the short-term industry. So a lot of the municipalities are restricting where you can do short-term rentals, which will also cause a problem. So that's why the midterm rental strategy is a sweet spot.
So let's talk about financing. So this house was on the news. It was not livable according to every single media out there. Walk us through the financing for this property.
So a house with a stigma or not livable that is gutted is always private money. And that's what we did here. I asked Lee and team how much they have in down payment, what the renovation is going to look like, got them a private loan with 20% in the deal, and then they're funding the renovations jointly with the JV partners from their own pockets. So in terms of pricing at the time, it was at around 8.5% interest-only payment, a total of 2% in fees roughly, but that's the money that we took to acquire this. But like I always say, before we take private money, we're going to make sure that we validate exit upfront. So we did go through a refinance scenario to make sure that we can refinance back to a bank. And of course, took into consideration some adjustments to the rates and best and worst case scenario.
What are you seeing in the market these days? So like obviously this was purchased in February. That was the height of the market where everybody was bidding above each other, no conditions.
Yeah.
Things have changed. So what are you seeing from a financing standpoint? Are lenders starting to pull back, be a little bit more restrictive?
So in the financing world right now, interest rates have gone up. Qualification with traditional lenders has become tougher. Private money is still there out in the street. However, they're selective about what they're funding and how far they go. But things are still moving. It's just there is a little bit more to work with right now.
Hey Ryan.
Hey Aisha, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Today I want to ask you the difference between a title search and an off-title search and why they're important.
Sure, absolutely. So they're important because they're basically going to be the foundation of what the person's buying. So for example, if you're buying a house and it's a duplex, as a real estate investor, you care about the title search because that's where you'll find registrations like liens, charges. You could have tax registrations if they have outstanding CRA, HST, or income taxes owed. That's where you can find writs and garnishments as well. So the title search gives you anything that's registered to the property or the person who actually is the owner of the property, right? So that's a title search, and so that's why it's important. Off-title search is the reason I reference like a duplex or a multi-res or a commercial is because a lot of people are real estate investors and they're often buying non-single family homes, right? And so anytime you're buying a property that is not a single family residential property, you want to also do off-title searches, which are going to be searches with the municipality and the city related to zoning, work orders, building permits, fire code certifications. Could be environmental searches as well, conservation. So all these extra searches become important to do with non-single family residential because there's no title insurance coverage without those searches being done. So they become an exclusion under your title insurance if you're not doing single family homes. So very important to do those because there could be many negative results. There could be none, right? But I'll give you a simple, easy one with a duplex. If you don't do the zoning search, you won't know if the city's actually approved it as a duplex. And if it's not, if you find out it's not a duplex after the fact, you're gonna have to pay fees and costs to get a rezoning certification done, which might be now out of your budget, or you leave it as a single family and now you're maybe not making the return on your investment you needed because you don't have 2 suites. So that's a simple example of why doing off-title and title searches are important and hopefully illustrates what they are.
Great, thank you. Well,
You're
now
welcome.
we know why title searches are important, and for more information, you can contact Ryan and his team at carsonlaw.ca. Thank you.
Thanks.